If a couple of uninteresting movies pop up in the theaters nowadays, people start calling it a bad year. To be honest, the term worst year is being used in all senses but its own. Do you know that scientists and historians have actually argued that there has not been a worse year than the year 536 in a long history? Yes, there are some worthy contenders that will make you say, oh man, that's gotta be the worst year of all, but competing with the year 536, keeping its impact over the following decades in mind, they got no chance at all. Join us as we try to understand what actually happened during the year 536 AD and why it's called the worst year of all. Now, without wasting any extra seconds, let's dive right into the video. A dark sun. During the year 536 AD, Byzantine historian Procopius was serving as the military advisor to Belisarius, one of the most distinguished military generals of the Byzantine Empire. One day, he was traveling with his masters to Sicily when he noticed that there was something wrong with the air and shifted his focus there. About this, he wrote of a sun that gave forth light without brightness, like the moon, with no sharpness on it, and this lasted a whole year, making the sun very similar to that of an eclipse on. He wrote, "For the beams it shed were not clear, nor as it's accustomed to shed." Translated, it says it was dark outside, everywhere, and like all the time. Obviously, he wasn't the only one to notice the dark mood of the sun during the year 536. Michael the Syrian, a Byzantine scribe, later wrote in his script, "The sun became dark and its darkness lasted for 18 months. Each day the sun shone for about 4 hours, but it was a shine without energy, without actual light. Everyone declared that the sun would never recover its full light. The fruits did not ripen and the wine tasted like sour grapes." This situation caused a dark, shadowy cloud to be cast over the globe for at least a full year in 536, and no one got to see the actual sun for like 18 months. Yes, 18 months without actual light. Researchers later discovered the traces of a massive volcano eruption, which ashes possibly contributed as a major factor, minus all the rain spreading the ashes to different areas for turning the year 536 into a dark year. Quite literally. A dark year with a dark famine. If total darkness throughout the globe wasn't enough to make the year 536 the worst of all, there was another thing that made things even worse. If you have read basic science and know about photosynthesis, you'd know that plants need air and light from the sun to survive and grow in this atmosphere. But was there any direct sunlight in the year 536? Hell no. As a result, the world witnessed crop failure at a massive scale, followed by a widespread famine around the globe. And no, I'm not talking about just the crops that need a decent amount of sunlight to grow. The sun had gone too chilly that no crop could survive. With the sun hidden under the clouds for more than 18 months, the overall temperature of the Earth dropped drastically to 1.5 and 2.5 degrees Celsius, or 34.88 and 36.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And yes, for all the Americans thinking that, oh, it's normal guys, remember that it wasn't the natural temperature everywhere, and it also cooled down the temperature of the Earth for the upcoming years. The crop scarcity affected almost the whole world and caused an uncountable number of deaths. In Ireland, they named it bread failure, and it was really horrible. No light, no food, and here comes a plague. Imagine this. The people have had no light for months and are also facing food scarcity at a really bad scale. Their immune system is completely rattled with the lack of nutrients and vitamin D. What could be worse, man? Well, what about a deadly plague? Sounds too horrible to be true, all in one year, right? But the year was horrible. In the year 536, when people were already fighting with a dark sun and had vitamin D deprived bodies, for them was awaiting a deadly plague that would make survival even more difficult for these poor people. The plague spread throughout the Byzantine Empire, and nobody was immune to this infestation. From the poor families in the lower classes to the imperial houses, the plague spared no one. The symptoms, as they were beautifully described, started with a sore on the palm of the hand and spread gradually across the whole body until one was unable to even take a step. The leg swelled and the bugles burst and the fuss came out. Let me tell you straight, if this same plague were to hit the world today, people would simply disgust each other, and if that wasn't enough, there would be a TV show that cast an expert doctor who'd teach you how to treat this disease. Anyway, when the plague began to make its rounds across Constantinople, the city started to stink with a pile of dead bodies, which were just being tossed into the waters, because obviously, they did not focus on burial things that much. It seemed like they had already surrendered to the plague and were doing just a winged thing then. Their Emperor Justinian ordered everyone to remove the bodies from the city, But what he thought to be a good decision turned out to be a really bad one. It only exposed more people to the plague since it was the healthy guys who were moving the dead bodies out of the city. But yeah, things weren't too bad for Emperor Justinian, as the plague that took thousands of lives would later be named the Plague of Justinian. Talking of numbers, the plague took more than 15 million lives, making the year 536 the worst of all in another way. Summer snow in China and Mesopotamia. Now, you might say, oh man, you just talk about Byzantine and all. Well, worry not guys, let's head over to China now. In the year 536, the climate in China took a sharp turn toward madness, doing just normal things, like hailing dust from the sky that you could scoop with your hands. Yeah, this seems normal when we talk of the year 536, doesn't it? The Nanxi, a 6th century chronicle, reported a yellow ash-like substance falling from the sky. And no, it wasn't gold, it was death in the form of dust. The Chinese named their hazardous weather Hui, or dust. We don't know if it was the result of a massive volcanic eruption or some super complex climate reaction, but all this was just the beginning of China's climate disruption. In the chronicles of the southern dynasties, historians have found the mention of a unique summer-winter weather, with frost in the midsummer and snow in August. Obviously, the Chinese crops weren't ready for anything like this, and when it hit them hard. The summer crops were completely destroyed, and the city of Zhengzhou, along with others, had to face a deadly famine that lasted for more than 2 years, killing more than 70 to 80% of the total population. Volcanic eruptions now? So far, we have seen the absence of sun, failure of crops, followed by deadly famines, and even a plague that contributed together to make 536 the worst year of all. But if that's not enough for you, we've got something else. Yes, there's more bad things to come. So, researchers have recently discovered evidence deep beneath the ice sheets of Iceland and Greenland that indicates a massive or gigantic volcanic eruption in the year 536. And these weren't the little volcanic eruptions that come and go. These eruptions literally threw the people of Iceland and Greenland to dark ages, with lava red ashes covering the sky and hiding the sun, which the people had gotten familiar with, and boiling magma coming out of the volcanoes. Based on tropical volcanic ash later discovered, some scholars have argued that a volcano in El Salvador went bursting around the year 535 or 536. On the other hand, some scholars suggest that a massive volcanic eruption in North America which contributed as a major factor for the dark skies across the world. All these volcanic eruptions combined with the mind-blowing situations going around Iceland gave a start to what was called the Late Antique Little Ice Age. This adorable-sounding ice age simply cooled off the planet for around a decade and resulted in the destruction of crops at a massive scale, and ultimately, animals and people too. Another good reason to declare 536 as the worst year of all. 536 changes the fate of the Roman Empire? Some historians also argue that the year 536 and what happened in it changed the fate of the Roman Empire. By the time the 6th century rolled around, the Romans traveled to the east and sought to regain their days of glory under the rule of Emperor Justinian. Much like a third-year pass-out who still wants to join the college lectures wearing his uniform. I mean, it's not that bad, but not cool either, right? Though some of Justinian's generals assisted him in achieving his goal, most notably Belisarius, who had fought with him in multiple battles, Justinian himself couldn't see victory clearly due to the constant uprising combined with political instability. And with all this going on with the already dark sun, war, and famine, the Byzantines could not fully recover from the disease and the plague that came after, resulting in a loss of around 35 to 55% of the population loss in the year 541. And in the end, the plague did the rest, dragging the Roman Empire to hell. Some small effects of 536. The year 536 brought literal destruction to the world, with crop failure, famines, plagues, and ice ages going all around. And if that was not all, you can add water ecosystem destruction, massive fish deaths, and a drastic rise in water temperature as well. It seemed it all happened in 536 in a hurry. Proof? We've talked about the year 536, its effects in different areas of the world, and the possible destruction it had made. But since you are Twitter, now X users, I know you're accustomed to hearing all these sorts of things on a regular basis, and you don't give a damn, at least now without proof. That's why Harvard historian Michael McCormick and a group of scholars came together and decided to set things straight. They wanted to answer the one question that was going all around. what is the worst year to be alive in? But that was not the initial subject they were working on. When the group of scholars came together, they were studying metal usage, coinage, and the changes that came to the 7th century monetary system. During the study, they got to study volcanic fragments from an Icelandic volcano, and yes, it dated back to the year 536, confirming that it was the same year when a good portion of the northern hemisphere was disrupted and light lost its strength, or in other words, it was the worst year of all. While the study of our Harvard friends did reveal an unimaginable reality of our history and prove that the year 536 was the worst of all, they also found things that were reassuring, at least a bit. During the study of coinage, they found the reappearance of lead in the ice core samples, which indicated that people were producing silver again. Yes, silver means money, and more money means a thriving economy, ultimately meaning that things were starting to get good again. A bit better at least. So, what do you think? Would you like to jump into a time machine like the Avengers and play the hero role in the year 536? That sounds like a crazy idea. Think about that as we end the video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button while you're at it. See you later.